everyone, and welcome to the Burgess podcast, the show where we are opening up conversations about life at sea, discussing hot topics within the industry, as well as offering mental health support and promoting well-being for crew. We also have our very own in-house recruitment team, so if you or anyone you know is currently looking for a new position, please send your updated CV to recruitment@burgessyachts.com or check out our recruitment posts on Instagram @Burgess Yacht Crew. Today we are honoured to advance our diversity series with Rebecca Whitlocke, founder of Antibes Yachting and a prominent yachting writer. Her 2021 article, The Truth Economy: Uncovering Diversity in Yachting, explored the topic of diversity within the yachting industry. Join us on our chat as we delve into her motivations for writing the article, the research she undertook, her findings, and the incredible reaction she has received following her groundbreaking publication. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. We're really thrilled to have you with us. We were doing some research into diversity in yachting and looking at, who could we invite onto the podcast to talk about this subject. And it's actually quite hard to find people, understandably, who are willing to open up about their own experiences. But I found your article on LinkedIn called Uncovering Diversity in Yachting, which was just so interesting and really eye-opening. So we just had to invite you on, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm super happy about the article because I did write it a few years ago. So to still keep getting feedback is really nice, and it's continuing the conversation, which I think is really important for yachting to progress.
Absolutely. So what inspired you to write the article?
Well, I think, at the time, I'll give credit here to Ria at Yachting International Radio because she was really a figurehead in the media landscape. They were having interviews regularly about diversity, and I think at the time she'd had maybe 80 interviews that had gone out. And I had a few yacht photographers come to me and they said that they'd pitched models for a photo shoot for a brokerage, and the brokerage had come back to them and said, that's not the look that we're going for. And it sort of ignited this conversation about the imagery that is going out in yachting for charter marketing and also, on the greater spectrum of communication in the super yacht sector. So it all started from there, really, and it snowballed super fast. I wrote the article, put a lot of time and research into it and interviewing various people. So, yeah, it's fantastic, the feedback and comments that I've received.
I mean, it's a conversation that, would you say is fair to say, is gaining traction, but it's still very new in our industry?
Yeah, I definitely think that it's continuing. I wouldn't say it's gaining traction because with the super yacht sector, I find there's sort of trends with what's a hot topic. People want to talk about sustainability, and then you find an onslaught of conversation either online or media coverage. And diversity had a little moment there for a while where everybody was getting involved, and I was seeing blogs and interviews and people were, posting publicly that they'd signed diversity pledges. So I think it's there was a lot of interest, and then it's plateaued a little bit. So we need to keep talking about it every day, not just when it, gets a little bit of a spotlight.
Absolutely. And can you clarify, when you're talking diversity in your article, which areas were you specifically looking at? Or was it diversity in its full meaning?
Yeah, I really wanted to catch everything that possibly hadn't been discussed before. So I covered age bias, gender, LGBTIA plus perspectives. It was the full spectrum of everything, and I just laid it all on the line. There was no holds barred. I wanted it to be a really open and honest discussion, and I had published it on my LinkedIn profile, and there was a follow-up interview done with a few other media, but it got picked up by other media sources as well, because I think there was just such a amazing discussion that resulted from that it started to draw out people and their perspectives as well, which was fantastic.
And each area is a massive topic. When you talk about gender, race, religion, sexual orientation. Each area on its own could be an article in itself. So to be able to incorporate all of that into one article must have been a massive challenge for you. What research did you do? Who did you talk to?
So, firstly, my starting point was because there wasn't much data for the super yacht sector, and there's been a few standalone surveys done and reports, but nothing really cohesive or in depth. And so, I thought, where am I going to turn to? The first place is to look at the existing media that we have. So, I looked at printed magazines, a snapshot of that, digital communication, so social media posts, what leading companies were putting out on their Facebook pages and Instagram, and of course websites. So I looked at 75 websites, a cross section in the industry, and this included homepages, their sales pages, destination imagery. It was a full analysis of everything related to yachting and the communication footprint that companies could be doing.
And how about crew? Did you talk to crew directly?
I did. I interviewed active crew members because I really wanted to get their perspective of new crew to the industry and also crew that had been in the industry for quite a while. There was a captain I spoke to. He'd been active in the industry for 30 years. So he had a really fantastic spread of how things have changed and what he thought for the future as well. Of course, I spoke to brokers, marketing teams, and people that were linked into the creative side of communication. So the yacht photographers, yacht designers, other writers as well. And it was important to get perspective from people across the industry and in different regions as well, because I didn't want to just interview people in France and Monaco. It was important to talk to people in other regions as well.
Is it fair to say it all starts or needs to start from the campaigns, the media campaigns?
It's a tough one because when I wrote the article, I did write it from the perspective of what needed to change from a media outlook, because obviously it's visual, and if we're seeing magazines and we're seeing websites and social media posts, this is what potential crew members are seeing as well. So media is a key part of how we communicate what the industry is like to people. So the media was a huge part of it for me. And I did have companies say to me, oh, but we don't have images or we don't have photos of people from different regions. And for me, I found that a huge excuse, because every company has the opportunity to create and control their own visual assets. So we shouldn't be using the imagery topic as an excuse to not driving and controlling our own messaging. So aside from the media, we have a lot of work to do with crew training and, things like the UK-SA cadetship program. Those are great initiatives because they're reaching people that perhaps don't have opportunities to step into the industry from the forefront. So it's not just media, it's crew training, it's funding opportunities, sponsorship. There's everything that goes behind it, such as jobs on land as well. Are we looking at people that aren't necessarily just from inside the yachting industry? Are they coming from other industries and their skills could perhaps transfer over?
Yeah, it's vast, isn't it? And yeah, we spoke with UKSA in December, I think, and they were telling us about these wonderful projects that they've started with trying to introduce and open up the industry to children who are from less privileged areas who may not even be aware of the yachting industry or the maritime industry as a job opportunity for them. I think a lot of people in the yachting industry come from a family of yachties, and UKSAR and other companies are opening it up to other children has only got to benefit the diversity campaign.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And until we have that exposure and we're explaining career paths to prospective crew members in different areas of the world, they might be completely unaware of, the progression that they can actually do. As you mentioned, people might come from a yachty family, or they know somebody whose uncle was a mariner or something like this. So they have a family connection already. And for people that are living in certain geographical areas, one, they may not have access to training schools. Two, it's a socio-economic issue as well. So, to get into the industry, even as an entry-level crew member, you need to have base certifications, and who's paying for that? It's not as easily said and done. And, we have shows like Below Deck. It's highly glamorized. It's on TV, and you have potential crew members who are saying, it looks like a glamorous lifestyle, and you get off and you're sitting on the beach with a cocktail, that type of thing. And they don't see the steps to actually get a foot in the door, to get launched, to get your first job. So I think we need to be honest about the process and how, that affects people.
Absolutely. And open up those doors to more people.
Yeah.
So when you were speaking to crew directly, what was their feedback? Have they noticed any change in conversation around diversity? Have they seen any change? And are they impacted by media and the lack of diversity in the media campaigns?
Yeah, I definitely had feedback that we could do better with imagery and the communication. There were people that commented on, derogatory comments while working on board, which was quite sad. So, having a support network for crew members that perhaps are being discriminated against seemed to be quite a big way of sharing information as well, because I found that once people approached me privately from the article, they'd just drop into my inbox. I could then give them resources where perhaps they could call ISWAN for somebody to talk to about their individual situation on board. So I wasn't looking to become that resource. I just wanted to open up more conversation, but it's fantastic that people did feel like they could reach out, and it gave them an avenue to look for that support and perhaps share that with someone else. So regarding the effects on mental health, I did have crews say to me that it impacted their confidence and their self-esteem. Particularly, I was surprised to hear from a lot of men as well, where they said if they were job seeking and they'd been knocked back because of age or a certain reason, that they sort of felt a bit deflated because of this. So, people had recognized that we could do better as an industry, and there's always room for improvement. It will never be perfect, but if people can recognize that there is a solution to improve, we can only start from there and go.
I think one of the parts of your article that I read that I found really upsetting was the LGBTQ plus community and the crew that you interviewed, who told you that they felt like they had to hide their identity. They couldn't be themselves. I mean, did you hear that a lot?
I did get this feedback as well, and I was shocked, and it made me so, so sad. In that regard, the yachting industry is really behind other industries, such as travel industry or fashion, even luxury fashion, because people feel like they need to tone down their personality to fit into a certain environment, working on board or working with a certain company. And for me, it's just a horrible thought to think that people feel obligated to do that, to be able to do their day-to-day job. So having the support networks, something like the Pride of Maritime, which is run by Maritime UK, and being able to be with a like-minded group of people is super important. We need to push the options out there to people so they can feel comfortable that they will be accepted, that they have a voice, and that they will be treated as an individual, regardless of where they come from, their religious background, their gender, etc.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I've loved most about doing these podcasts and the amount of people that we've spoken to is the sheer amount of people out there, former crew, who have dedicated their lives to setting up support groups for various topics. And the amount of support out there is actually bigger than I ever realised. It's just opening up those channels to crew, isn't it? Because they need to know that those support groups are there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, a lot of these support groups and associations that have been launched have come from that personal experience from ex crew or people that have been through this situation themselves, or worked closely with someone. So there has been that gap, and they've thought we need to fill this gap because of these reasons. And it's only going to positively impact the industry going forward. We need to be appealing to millennials as well, because they're watching us, they're watching all industries, and we're going to lose really great employees if we don't adapt and start to make people feel valued, and giving them a job that is actually making them feel like they're progressing to something. And it's a process really that it will take time, but every company and every individual in yachting can make a change.
So you wrote this article, did you say 3 years ago?
Yeah, I wrote it a few years ago, and so it's been online then and still getting feedback, believe it or not.
Yeah.
People like you popping up and telling me you've read it, which is great.
Well, it's a sign of a great article and a great topic, isn't it? Where people are still finding it and still finding it relevant, which is, I mean, 3 years is not a long time in the grand scheme of things, but it still concerns me that, and let me put this to you, do you think we've moved any further forward since you've written the article?
I knew you were going to ask me this.
Sorry.
I took a snapshot of some recent media just so I could prove exactly what you just asked me. So I've looked recently, and this is in the last fortnight. So I received 5 interviews with brokers. I won't name the companies, the yachting companies. All of the brokers were men that were interviewed. I had 16 podcasts drop into my inbox. Again, all of them were men, interviews with men. I'm not on a man bashing mission here or anything. I'm just stating, the current snapshot. I have received 4 newsletters, and out of 18 interviews, 16 of them were a similar profile. So out of 39 media spots, just 2 of those were women, and the gap was even more glaring concerning ethnicity, or if we were interviewing someone with another perspective, such as LGBTQIA+. So it has moved on in the respect of some of the websites I looked at initially have upgraded their marketing, their communication for their charter collaterals changed, their social media posts have changed. But interviews and online digital media, if I took a snapshot now and put them all publicly, I think I would scare a few people just how how much it hasn't changed. Another thing is we need to really work harder with getting a broader range of people on speaker panels at yachting events and forums, because I just had one a few weeks ago that was in Northern Europe, and everybody was pretty much the same profile. So if we're not inviting people with different perspectives to get up there and debate and talk and share their experience and their knowledge, we can't actually come up with new solutions or innovation or anything, because we're asking the same people all the time. And that's my 2 cents worth.
It's very thought provoking, isn't it? And I don't know. It's from the research that we do, I am hopeful that conversations are happening, but they're not happening fast enough.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at with the topic. And I'm sure, crew find it infuriating as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you for writing the article. Are you planning on writing another one, a follow-up to
I
see
could
if
do a
things change?
follow-up. Yeah, I mean, a lot has changed regarding, things have improved. As you mentioned, they're moving on, but it's a slow pace. And I think one of the main things also for the industry is it's not just about data, it's about people and talking to people and having people involved in that decision-making process. Because until we get people from all levels of a company, so that the stakeholders, the CEO, and then, it filters down, nothing will progress as much as we hope that it will. So we've got to start. I should do an update of my article and give a bit of an overview of what's happening today. Might scare a few people again, but to make a difference and to have a positive impact on the yachting community, sometimes you have to have uncomfortable conversations and discussions. And until somebody is actually brave enough or confident enough to get online, and I appreciate you inviting me onto the show and giving me the opportunity to speak of what I did to do research for this article, because when we actually are opening up that space for other people, we can get more insight into what needs to change and what's working and what perhaps is a gap there.
Absolutely. Somebody once told me that with these conversations, you have to almost be like a little annoying puppy with a ball, that you have to keep picking up the ball and throwing it back into the lap. You've just got to keep talking, and encourage more people to keep talking, and hopefully eventually we'll start getting better. But thank you so much, Rebecca. It's been a really interesting chat, and we look forward to the follow-up article.
Thank you so much. It's been great to chat to you, and I'll keep you posted on that. Thank you.